Hey community, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, I'm Dr. Blaire, a doc in clinical psychology. And on this channel, we discuss psychology, inspiration, social justice, and all topics in between. I need you to first go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I need to see you back here next week. And of course, stay tuned if you have ever wondered, how do I produce change? All right, let's get started. But before we jump in fully and go to our 4 steps, I think it's really important that we establish a firm foundation of what exactly do I mean by produce and change. So here are some very clear definitions. Produce: cause a situation to happen or come into existence. Change: to make someone or something different, alter or modify, to replace with something else, the act or instance of making or becoming different. Now that we have a clear understanding of what it means to produce, come into existence, change, replace with something else, we can move into step 1, which is to gain knowledge and understanding. I think this is really important, mainly because people perish, they suffer due to the lack of knowledge. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who can think back on their lives and find multiple times where you didn't have knowledge and you didn't have an understanding, therefore you had issues that came up. For example, many new business owners since the pandemic, so many people launched their business or additional businesses. And since that, a lot of people who were kind of getting into this and they were really new, they found out about all of these loans and grants, funding opportunities for them during the pandemic, but weren't able to secure some of these fundings simply because their business legalities were not in order. They didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have the understanding of what it meant to have a lot of these legalities or articles of organizations in order, their business accounts, things of that nature in order prior to actually applying for some of these funds. Now, this is not really to talk about the scandal of so many people getting money that they weren't supposed to be getting, the illegal PPP folks that, or the scandals that went on, but more so to talk about we end up in situations or end up lacking results that we are desiring when we don't have the information, the knowledge and understanding that is needed. So people perish due to the lack of knowledge. They suffer due to the lack of knowledge. And I want to make sure that we are going through steps that are needed, not only to have knowledge, but also have the understanding, which are two separate things. Knowledge is more information based. Understanding is getting into your comprehension. And I believe that in order for us to really comprehend, we have to go beneath that surface layer. A lot of times when we look at the problem, we're looking at this problem up here. We have to get down to the root problem. And so an example of a root problem may look like a lot of what many of us have seen to young children, especially young boys while in school. They get, labeled as hyperactive, ADHD, and sometimes those are actually accurate and other times it's not. And unfortunately, children who are considered hyperactive also get the label of being the bad child. Now, people may not actually say that out their mouths, or they do, but nonetheless, we don't want children being labeled as that because it definitely molds and shapes their behavior moving forward. We gotta protect the children. Seriously, they're our future. Cliche bit much? Probably. All right, back to it. So think about it. When there is a child who's going to school and they have a tendency to be highly hyperactive at the start of the day, maybe they have somewhat of a crash around lunchtime and it picks back up. That child is then being labeled as bad. They're often in the principal's office. They aren't getting the academic attention that is needed because it's often focused on their behavior. But if we dig a bit deeper beneath that, and instead of going straight to hyperactive, yes, that is the result, but we are not necessarily getting down to the root problem of what is contributing to the hyperactivity. Maybe after digging deeper beneath the surface, you find out, well, they're eating a lot of junk food or they're eating food that is going to cause some hyperactivity, like candy, things of that nature. And so as we peel the layer back again, and we go even deeper, we may find out that that child may have lack of access to a healthier meal. Now, because we have not only knowledge, information, but we also have an understanding of what is contributing to the behavior that we are seeing that we don't want, the undesired behavior. So it gives us an array of positive solutions that actually get to the root problem instead of creating more problems like labels that have negative connotations. Understood? Cool. After we have gone through step one, we then can move into step two, which is to change our thoughts and behaviors. Now, this is actually pretty packed. It's not easy to do to change your thought pattern and your behaviors. But as I mentioned earlier, when we are able to kind of change our thoughts, it does mold and shape our behavior. How we look at ourselves, how people look at us can positively or negatively impact and influence our behavior. Therefore, what we think actually is probably where we should start first. So if you go around thinking, well, I'm not going to do good at this, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, it's going to mold and shape your behavior as it follows what your thoughts are. Because really, our thoughts over time is a reflection of what we believe. If you then instead flip that negative thought around to, I can do it, I will do it, then it puts you in a position to increase the likelihood that you can and will do whatever it is. And so we want to infiltrate that thought into actually believing that you can and will. There's one thing to think it, to say it, is another thing to actually believe that in your heart, right? And so one of the ways that you can actually start to shift your language is what you naturally normally say that you want to change. Give yourself the opposite. If you naturally think I cannot do it and you hear yourself think it in your head, you say it out loud, then you have to catch yourself and then replace it with the thought that you prefer to have. And that thought is pervert. If the thought is that instead I can do it, I will do it, you need to repeat that right after you have said the thing that you no longer want to think. And it requires that repetition until you get it not only in your mind, but also in your heart that you can and you will do whatever it is. That then will follow into making changes in your behavior positively. That's the key. Now, here, when you know better, you have to do better. And so we have to have accountability around us that's gonna help us to continue on the path that we are on, especially when you are first launching into not only discovering what that root problem is, gaining that knowledge and understanding, but then as you are actually shifting to make changes into your thoughts and behaviors, it requires tons of repetition because you're changing what you have done for so long into something else. That doesn't happen so quickly, even though we want it to. So in step two, you are building new thoughts and behaviors. If you had to look at it as a building block, think about what it takes to build a house or a tall building, a skyscraper. I'm from Chicago, so I think of skyscrapers a lot. Think about what it actually requires for you to have to build a skyscraper, right? You are having to put a lot of material, a lot of effort into building something that's rather large. The same concept happens for yourself. You are building new thoughts and building new behaviors. And also at the same time, you're having to get rid of some of the old as well. So that requires some effort. But once we get this step down pat, we get to move into step three. Now, step three is probably the most crucial step here. Crucial step, mainly because it requires for you to have to be consistent. Now, research shows us that when we are working to change a behavior, it takes about 3 weeks, 21 days to actually get that ingrained. Now, I tend to lean on the side where I think it actually takes a bit longer, especially for things that are a larger challenge. But if you bite these things off into smaller chunks, it gives yourself more leeway to make that progress in that short amount of time. But if it's a large behavior or a behavior that's a bit more ingrained into your processes, your thought processes, and also your behavior, then it likely will take longer. And it really, really, really is going to require tons of accountability, as I mentioned earlier, in order for you to maintain this. Now, what does accountability look like in a situation where you're making changes to your behavior and your thoughts? It's not just your own accountability, but your environment around you. And there was this show on BET called being Mary Jane, where she had post-its around. And I know a lot of people like to have post-it reminders. That's a great thing. It's actually a physical reminder to yourself of whatever it is that you're working on, whatever it is that you want to remind yourself of. Do the same thing here. If you're working to change a thought, put that accountability post-it right in front of your face and give yourself a clear reminder of where it is that you're moving toward. The key here is to refrain from slipping back into past behaviors, past thought patterns, and past root problems. We are instead wanting to move closer toward our goal, closer toward the desired behavior or the desired thought pattern, which then leads us to step 4. And step 4 is to repeat. That simple. Repeat, rinse and repeat. We want to do this all over again. If you've gone through this process from step 1 all the way to step 4 for one root problem, then pick another root problem, because we all have a host. We all have a scroll list of root problems to work on. And the great thing is, when we are attacking one root problem, we actually end up getting some of those other smaller problems that are connected. But when you attack a root problem, you change the thoughts, the behaviors that are connected to it, and you're able to maintain over a period of time. You give yourself reminders, you have accountability, you have made it changes in your environment. Then you can repeat this entire process all over again with something new. And that is the process of producing change in your life. And if you're able to produce change in your life, then you're providing a model to someone else who may or may not actually let you know that they are paying attention to you. So, my question is for you: how are you going to move forward and produce change for yourself? How are you going to produce change for yourself that will impact your family systems, impact your friend systems, maybe also even impact your community that is directly around you? How are you going to produce change? Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Share with someone who could benefit from this message. And let's stay connected on Instagram, Facebook, and Clubhouse. Remember, before you go, if I'm great and you're great, then we are a great community.